We are students at Rice. We all live, experience, and study diversity at Rice and beyond. We investigated what undergraduates, graduates, faculty, and staff think about diversity at Rice in the context of diversity in the world.
When I was in the third grade.
My name is Katie Lowazinski and I'm a freshman at Will Rice.
Jason Isaacs, Jones College. I'm a senior.
I'm Charlene, I'm from Baker and I'm a freshman.
I'm Christy Nitschrauer. I'm a third-year PhD student in Mickey Hebel's lab.
My name is Luis Pacheco. I'm a freshman from Hanson College.
My name is Jonathan Kyle Bailey and Baker, and then I am a junior.
James Carter, I'm a junior at Brown College.
My name is Danielle Manahan. I'm a freshman from Brown College.
I'm Abby Corrington and I'm a first-year graduate student in the IO Psychology program working with Dr. Mickey Hebel.
Lindsay Fess. I'm a junior from Brown College.
I'm Director of Disability Support Services and I work in the Allen Centre in the Disability Support Office.
Variety.
Acceptance of different values and different perspectives.
Diversity is we respect people's uniqueness and the difference between people.
Diversity means where everyone accepts different points of view from different kinds of people.
So I think of diversity as a construct, and there are different groups that are part of the construct. Age, what else do I have? Ethnicity, different cultural groups, and then I broaden that to include things like disability, which came about through ADA, pregnancy, gender. So it's multidimensional, and it includes a lot of groups that are not covered by legislation.
I would define diversity as different groups and how they get together, how the different interactions that the groups have with each other.
I guess diversity is basically any sort of difference that affects identity or ability, whether it's mental or physical, and then also like perceived and prescribed identities by self and others.
Those groups that tend to be overlooked or underrepresented.
I think diversity is an interesting concept to try to define. For me, it is kind of an appreciation and an actualization of variance in specific facets of one being. So racial diversity, there's class diversity, there's gender diversity, there's diversity in sexuality, there's diversity in ideas. I think diversity is super broad.
I guess diversity would be having people from all different backgrounds, all different races, life experiences, different paths and perspectives about the world.
So diversity is having a variety of backgrounds, whether it's related to race, or gender, or sexual orientation, or religion.
To me, diversity, I guess, is just a mixture of like cultures, ethnicities, ideas, all coming together in like a common area, like at Rice. We're all like coming together to work towards a common goal.
When I think of diversity, I think of people with disabilities, I think people of different races, colours, creeds. It's a sort of a multi faceted view of humanity. It's not just one sort of, it's not that we divide or black, that we become in many different facets.
People try to put us to down, talking about my generation, just because we get around. Talking about my generation, things they do look awful. Talking about my generation, I hope I die before I get old. Talking about my generation, just my generation, baby. Why don't you all fade away? Don't try and dig what we all say. Trying to cause a big sensation. Swing! I got a soul that cannot sleep at night when
They are unintelligent, and that's why they went to the service instead of going to college straight out of high school. Other people believe that the only veterans are mentally unstable, along with the rise in awareness of PTSD
veterans with mental illness and also falsely linking that with violence.
Yes, women do in fact experience stereotypes in the workplace, and oftentimes they may face greater hostility due to preconceptions about their devotion to work. We have an ideal worker model, which basically posits that an ideal worker gives 100% of their focus to work. Work is their number one priority in their life, and as soon as there's some sort of visible marker, which would be a pregnant woman visibly being pregnant or telling others that she's pregnant, it indicates that she's splitting her focus from work. So already, this is a visible demarcation of something denoting a woman's gender. So already this contrives images of warmth and incompetence. That's what you should remember about pregnant women in the workplace. They're viewed to be extremely warm, and as soon as they tell people they are pregnant or they are visibly pregnant, they take a hit to competence.
So we have institutional racism, and I'm sure everyone in this class is familiar with the legacy of Native Americans and the relationship between Native Americans and the government. Andrew Jackson, the Trail of Tears, all of these things come to mind. So we have institutional racism. We do have this issue of cultural genocide. Some think that that's too harsh of a term, but I would disagree. And again, this idea of forced assimilation. So those are our three key terms. Forced assimilation, meaning you have to strip your own background, your own uniqueness, your own culture, your own ethnicity, in order to conform to the dominant culture in society.
Today I'm going to talk to you about gender issues, about discrimination, and about how the face of discrimination has changed. And it was experiences like that and being at Smith College where I really was reminded that almost 100 years ago, women got the right to vote. Almost 100 years ago, 1920. 50 years ago was the Civil Rights Act. There have been so many other wonderful laws that have passed on behalf of people based on age, based on physical disability, that have protected individuals on the basis of civil rights. And if you look up on the slide, what you see is these are things that are hopefully of the past, where we see discrimination on the basis of race, on religious orientation, on sexual orientation, on some of these things. And so some of us might wonder, well, do we really need feminists? Do we really need egalitarianists? Okay. Is there any such thing as discrimination remaining? And what I'd like to do, once I have the clicker, sorry, here we go, is to tell you that I think so. And I think that what I'd like to do, and what I do in my research, is try to unravel what's behind these smiles. So is there an expression behind the smiles? And my research focuses on interpersonal discrimination. So what sorts of things might happen at a level that is different than the illegal behaviors that I refer to as formal discrimination. So clearly there was formal discrimination, and if you look at many of the laws, what we see is they have succeeded in reducing the formal discrimination. My question is there still a type of discrimination that remains? And I call this discrimination interpersonal discrimination. And it's something that I want you all right now to think of somebody you don't like. Okay? And this somebody you don't like is right in front of you. And if you can't think of somebody you don't like, you can raise your hand and I can give you an extra person because I've got a few extra. Okay? So somebody is in front of you and you don't like them, and what does your body do? What does your face do? What is behind this sign? And what probably happens is you orient away from them, you want to get out of the interaction, you have something we call Duchenne smile, it's a fake smile, you kind of nod and you just kind of want to move on away.
What's wrong with the world, mama? People living like they ain't got no mamas. I think the whole world's addicted to the drama, only attracted to things that'll bring the trauma. Overseas.
I think there's a broad range of pretty much every distinction of race, religion, sexuality, gender. Those are like the ones that come immediately to mind, but obviously there are a lot of other ones.
I guess in general diversity, there's a lot of ethnic and racial diversity, but I think sometimes, and like speaking from my experience, I guess, of being temporarily disabled, we forget about like the collective population.
I think when I first came here, so it's during my O-week time, I read that pre-college book, Double Quality, and we had a discussion about it, so I feel that there is something that's about diversity at Rice. Like during my time, like my everyday time at Rice, I felt there is less that kind of discussion. So I think we need more. We need a kind of workshop or cafe afternoon tea session like that, so we can talk about it more and have everybody's opinion.
I think diversity is important at Rice University because it allows us to have different points of views and backgrounds.
So like we had the research center, for women. So we in all the different high schools that I went to, we never had anything like that. And it's kind of things like that that I feel like help different groups around campus that I never really experienced before in high school.
A lot of Rice students like to think that we're very diverse, and a lot of people will make statements like, I'm not racist. But ultimately what I found is a lot of it comes down to people like to think they're not racist, but they're not like overtly racist, but the microaggressions come out. So I think that's the state of a lot of forms of diversity, is that people are peripherally aware of what's going on, but then microaggressions that come from ignorance happen way too frequently.
A lot of what I work to do at Rice is to kind of bring awareness to the lack of diversity that is here. Rice tends to pride itself on being a diverse campus, and I don't think that we are necessarily where we should be in terms of some of the accolades and some of the claims that we make about diversity. Like last year, Rice was awarded by like the Princeton Review like the best campus for racial interactions. And I think one of the reasons we get that accolade is because of our residential college system, which mixes people all around. So sure, you're interacting with people who look and are different than you, but are those interactions A, meaningful, and B, are they helpful? Are they teaching you anything about other people? So I think Rice is in a position to be great soon or to move towards greatness, but right now I think we're kind of lacking, and I don't think that that's reflected in the culture. I think it's kind of aggrandized in the culture actually, which is kind of unfortunate.
The efforts for inclusion of maybe marginalized groups of people. I also happen to know Lady Catherine, who's the head of the diversity, so I guess I think of her.
Lady Catherine is pretty famous among the incoming freshmen because she gives an amazing speech every year. And I think it's just this idea that most of us have come from high schools that are pretty homogenous, and then realizing that the world is a lot bigger than the people who we've met from your experiences before Rice.
In 2 studies conducted here at Rice, Dr. Hebel and her colleagues examined effective diversity training and how racial stereotypicality impact friends and friendship networks. In the first, titled Enhancing the Effects of Sexual Orientation Diversity Training, the Effects of Setting Goals and Training Mentors on Attitudes and Behavior, her students Juan Madera, Eden King, and herself tested the use of goal setting in diversity training context. They found that after 3 months, those who had set goals were showing more LGBT supportive behaviors, but there were no difference in attitudes. However, at the 8-month follow-up point, those who had behaved in ways that were more LGBT supportive also showed more supportive attitudes. This research is important because it shows that goal setting is effective in diversity training, but also it shows that change behaviors can lead to changes in attitudes as well.
Look, in the words of Mr. Mandela, we each have a spirit inside that's angelic. We can't keep fearing the light, let it develop. Whose people shine nearly as bright? I can't tell it. My band about 70 strong, just like fellas. A heat wave like Martha and the Vandellas. But how it's going down in the world is scandalous. Folks busy the street and in New York top sellers. As we advance from rock sellers to Rockefellers and drop some of the most popular acapellas. You got the lovers, cold-blooded soul brothers, asleep with our head on the pillow under the covers. How long will it take us to learn from one another? That respect is something to earn from one another. We can change how the world turn for one another. Just show a little common concern for one another. Wake up, everybody, no more sleeping in bed. There it is. No more backward thinking, time for thinking ahead. The world's changed so very much from what it used to be, and there is so much hatred.